Hello friends, welcome back to my channel SyntaxAdda. My name is Ravi Ranjan and we'll continue with the setting up Spring Boot project for JPA Hibernate. So in the last video, we saw how we can set up MySQL database, right? So what we did for that, just a brief, recap. So in order to, set up the MySQL database, we required two things, right? One was MySQL server, right? MySQL server, and second one, to interact with that server, we needed MySQL workbench. Okay, so these two we already installed, and we also saw, right, how we can connect to MySQL server with by creating a connection user, right? We connected a connection user with the name dev user, right? We connected, we created this dev user, and then we connected to the MySQL server, right? How? By using the client, that is MySQL Workbench, which is nothing but the GUI tool for interacting with the MySQL server. That's what we did, right? And then we created a new, we created a new database here, because here the default database was sys, right? So we created a new database with the name dev, and then in that, database, we created an employee table, right? That's what we did. We created employee table. So this is all about our previous video. So in this video, we'll see how we can, now MySQL database is ready, right? Now we need to design an app, right? So we'll develop an app, okay, which will go and interact with this database, right? It will do all the operations related to, CRUD operations and all. So we'll see how we can do this. So we'll go to the, actual Hibernate and JPA part later on. First, we'll see how we can set up this, application. And this application we are going to develop using the Spring Boot. Okay. Now, uh, when we are talking about the setting up the a project in, uh, Spring Boot, right? So we generally need two things. Okay. So we'll need MySQL driver. Why MySQL driver? Because we need to connect it to MySQL database, right? So we need driver, and then we need, and we'll perform some, CRUD operation, or we'll see other, how we can utilize, JPA Hibernate libraries to create an entity, and then how we can map the data from application layer to the database layer. Okay, so those things which we are going to cover. So yeah, second thing, what we need Spring Data JPA. So we'll need Spring Data JPA. Just remember one thing, I already mentioned this part. When we am talking about a JPA, right? When I'm talking about JPA, just understand this, I'm talking about Hibernate as well, right? Just keep this in mind, right? When I'm talking about JPA, it means I'm talking about Hibernate as well. Why? Because Hibernate is the default, implementation of JPA. Okay, so we need two things here. When we are going to set up, Spring Boot project, we'll need a MySQL driver or Spring Data JPA. In both we need. But okay, you might be thinking why we need these two. So just think about think about a situation when we didn't had this technology in place, right? Spring Boot or Spring, right? So how we used to connect to the database? So we used to write the Java application, right? Then in order to connect to any database, let's say Oracle database, if you wanted to connect, right? MySQL, right? So what you will think, what you will need? So you will need to first download the driver, right? Driver jar, right? Then place in this class path of that Java application. Then you need to write a lot of code to first load the driver class, then get the connection, then you perform, SQL related operation, right? So these were the things. So there also we needed some driver, right? Right. This Spring Data JPA is the extra thing here. Why? Because this is the framework for doing whatever JDBC we are doing, right? we were writing a lot of, native queries and all, right? And lot of other stuffs, right, which we were doing in the JDBC. Right now, by using this Spring Data JPA, we need to put less effort, right? So that's why we included Spring Data JPA, right? And we'll have a lot of other things also which we'll discuss. So in brief, just understand this here. We are going to just set up a Spring Boot project for JPA Hibernate. We need two things: MySQL driver and Spring Data JPA for this. Hope this is clear. So now question is how we can create the Spring Boot project. So there can be different ways. So most convenient way is to go to the starter, right? Go to the starter.spring.io, and then you know configure your project, and then just load that project into some IDE. So here I'm going to use IntelliJ. So I will load this project in IntelliJ IDE. So that's the main motive. So let's see how we can do this. So I will open this IntelliJ IDE, right? Once you open, you'll see this explore, right? This window. And here, if you see, if you want to create new project, right? Or we can open the project. There are two ways, right? So if you see here, new project. So here you have the, option to create the Spring project. But if you see, this is, comes with after paying some price. So better you skip this one. We'll see how we can create project by simply visiting to the starter.spring.io, and then we'll download the basic template, and that will extract, and then we'll just import it here. Okay, just a small correction here. It should not be starter, it should be start. Okay, so this will be start, right? .spring.io. So we'll go to Chrome browser, and here we'll type in start.spring.io. So here you can see you can set up your initial project. Okay, so that's what we are going to do it here. So I'm interested in Maven. So I'm taking this will be as a Maven. Okay, language I'm choosing Java, and I will go with the most stable version of Spring Boot. So that is the 3.2. That is the default. It will be default selected. Okay, and then here I will create the group. So I'm going to give the name as SyntaxAdda, and I'm going to name the artifact. Okay, so artifact is nothing but the name of your project. Okay, so I will type in JPA and I will give Hibernate. Okay, so this I can say JPA Hibernate project for Spring Boot. Okay, so if you see, if I'm going with the Spring Boot version 3 and above, so in that case will require at least Java 17. So I will go with this, and packaging is jar. So it can generate the jar for you. So this is kind of packaging, right? So we can go with the var also or jar also. So var in case of web application, but since it's a simple JPA Hibernate application, so I will go with the packaging jar. Okay, now we need to add the dependencies, right? As I mentioned. So what all things we need? We need two things, right? So I told MySQL driver. So you can see here we have the option for choosing MySQL driver, and one more things we need, that is Spring Data JPA. So when we are adding the dependencies for JPA, it means we are adding the dependencies for Hibernate as well. Okay, once this is done, you can click on generate. So it will the basic project, right? The time we can say the template of this project will be downloaded. So I will go to downloading section, and here I can see my project is downloaded, right? So I will just take this zip file, and I will extract it here in my workspace here, and then I will extract it here. Yeah, simply extract this, or just remove this. I want to extract in SyntaxAdda. Extract this. So it is extracted here, right? And I'm going to open, I will just delete this part. So if you go to this project, see here, we have the basic structure of this project. Okay. So I will open the same project in IntelliJ IDE. I'll see open. So I told you, right, here we can create the new project as well, but the problem is we need to take the, you know, it's a free for 1 month trial, you can try that out, but I will prefer to go with the first choice. So just close this, I'll say open, right? So as soon as I go here, so I will see this JPA Hibernate. Okay, I'll just click on OK. So this will, and if you see, notice here, right, it started downloading or resolving the dependencies, right? So what happens if you go to the pom.xml, right? This is your project object model, right? So whatever the configuration is provided, right, here. So you will see here what all dependencies are added. So it's Spring Boot starter data JPA, which we need, and we also needed as MySQL driver. So if you see, this is the artifact type is MySQL connector J. Just remember this part. Apart from that, the test dependencies and all, right? And what plugins we used? We are using the Maven plugin, right? So this is our basic project, and based on this, it has auto configured, and we are it has also downloaded the libraries related to dependencies, what all things we added here. Okay, so you can see here, right, it has in this library, if you see, it is having the JDBC, right? So it is having JDBC data JPA, so everything you will be able to see in this library. Okay, so that's the benefit of using the framework. Now if you go to source, main, Java, and here you will be able to see this application, right? So how I will test this application, since this is not the web application, so we are not going to launch this on 8080 port, we will not do that. So how we'll test this? This is not a web application, right? And yeah, before this, you just notice the name of this application. It's what I gave, JPA Hibernate, right? That was the artifact which I had given. So what when so what start.spring.io does, it just remove that hyphen, and then it use upper camel case technique to you know name this Spring Boot application, and it will append with application, and it will be annotated with this @Spring Boot application. So if you want, so we'll cover this one in when we'll cover the Spring Boot or microservices topic, then we'll cover all these things in detail. But for the time being, just understand this one. So for any Spring Boot application, this is the invocation point, right? And we have this, right? If you see here, so we have this in place, right? So this is the invocation point where you see this is the main method, right? Public static void, we are passing this argument, and Spring application dot run. When we do this, then it will execute your application. Okay, so yeah, I was talking about how we can configure, how we'll just run this application. So we need to test this application. So what we'll do, we can use the command line runner. So let's first write, and then I will explain. Command line. So if you see, this is the if you go here, this is the functional interface provided by it's in the Spring Framework boot package. And if you see, it has only one void method which accepts any number of arguments. Okay, so I'll give the method name as command line runner, right? And just put in string args. Since this is the functional interface, we can express this one in the form of lambda expression also, right? So okay, so what we can do, this is going to return runner, let's say, and what we are going to, we just want to print some information on console when this application is running, right? So I will just type in system.out.println, and I will say hello world, right? We just want to see whether it's printing or not. Now there is one thing missing, that is one annotation, that is @bean. So why we are using bean here? So just import this dependencies. So if you see, this is the context annotation, Spring Framework context annotation. So why we are using this @bean at this method? So this is the way of telling Spring to manage, object. So command line runner object will be managed by Spring itself. So this is the way. And yeah, so we have our application ready, but wait, one thing is missing. Can you guess what? Yes. So that is, in application dot properties, we have not configured our database. So how will this application will go and connect with our database, right? So that's the main thing. We have not configured that till now. So what we'll do? So for that we can write Spring dot data source, right? Dot URL is equal to what we can write, JDBC colon. So it's a MySQL database. So I'm going to connect to MySQL, right? And where is my database located? It's a local host right now, right? If it is on some server, then in that case you will provide some detail of your SQL, where is your MySQL database sitting, right? And the port was 3306. And what's my database name? What was my database name? It was dev. It was dev, right? Then we'll provide Spring dot data source dot username, dev user, right? And password was equal to dev. Okay, so this was our basic configuration here. Sorry for this. So this is our basic application dot properties configuration. So once this is done, we can go to JPA Hibernate application. We can right click and we can run this JPA Hibernate app dot application dot main, right? So this application we can run it from here, right? Or you can just click here as well, right? You can see here the play icon and you can run this. So let's see. This started running. So if you'll see here, right? So if you see here, we are able to see all the important information here, and we are able to see the hello world printed, right? So how will make sure ki it's whether it's connected to our database or not, right? So we'll do one thing, right? We are able to see it's start completed also, right? So data source is start completed. So we'll just try to make sure, even if you are not sure, what we can do, we can just make some changes in application dot properties. Let's give some name. Okay, just give some other username. Okay, and we'll see whether we are able to connect or not. Just save it and then go to Spring Hibernate application. Just click on this, run, and then let's see. So as you see, when we intentionally made some changes to the username, right? What I'm able to see now, I'm not able to connect to the database. It started, throwing exception, access denied for the user, right? Because we provided wrong username, right? So it means when we provided with the correct username and password, it was able to create the connection. And right, so we'll go back to the application dot properties and make it. Okay. Go to the application and then run it. And yes, we are able to, we are able to connect to the database now. Okay, so this is just to make sure, yeah, we have we are able to connect to the database. Okay, so let's say if you see the logs, right, we are able to see the info log, right? If you don't want this to be printed, if you want only error or warning to be printed, in that case you can configure in that case you can configure application dot properties. You can add these properties, logging dot level dot root, and you can just say in case of warning only show the issue. Okay, so if you'll go back and if you'll run this application, so you are able to see only hello world. Okay, but yeah, if you are doing any mistake in this code, in that case it will show that error as well. Okay, so it doesn't mean ki it will always show you if you are marking this properties as warn. So it doesn't mean ki it will not show you the error one. It will show you the error one or warning. Hope this is clear. Now, if you don't want this banner to be displayed as well, right? Every time if you don't want to have this banner in your application while running, that also you can disable. Okay, so what you can do? So I'm just putting some message as well here so that it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, so this is setting logging label. Okay, so logging label can be your info, which is by default, right? Warning, error, etc. Severe, right, etc. Now we want to disable the banner. We don't want this Spring banner to be displayed always, right? So disable Spring banner. So what you will do? For that, you can add properties Spring. See, all these things you can just Google and you can find it out. The different properties and the use, right? And for the different use cases, right? So Spring dot mean dot banner mode. So we are going to make this off. So anyway, we don't need that always, we don't want this banner to be, displayed, because we already know this is the Spring Boot application, right? So why we need this? So that's why I'm disabling this banner. Let's save this, go back here and run this application. So you are able to see, right? Now we are able to only execute the part we want to, right? So we are able to see, right, in the application, the command line runner, which is the, if you want to test the things, we can print it out. So hope this is clear. So we are now able to set up our Spring Boot application for JPA and Hibernate or JPA Hibernate. Right now, our application is ready to connect with the database. In the next video, we will learn how we can map Java object to the database, MySQL database, and then we'll learn about different annotations and operations that we can perform on that database. Hope this is clear. So if you like my video, please share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe my channel and press the bell icon for any further videos. Thank you so much.